Country and Western.
It's okay. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. So, Mike Romero, happy to have you, man. So, dude,
happy to be here,
awesome,
man. It's
so
awesome,
dude. You're drinking urine.
Yeah, I guess
It's not, but it's. I'm asking. It looks like it, but it's highly suspicious.
It's the Costco branched chain aminos.
I don't know, man. But you're that person. You have that personality, man. That if somebody told me I saw Mike Romero drinking urine, I would believe it, and I'll tell you why. Because you have that personality of just you're just a hard fucking worker, and you have we were talking about high cholesterol and what is it that you have?
I have hypertension.
Hypertension. No, I was like, yeah, I can see that. I could have told you that.
Yeah.
Where you're just like this fucking ball of energy, man. From 4 a.m. till 8 p.m. You just go.
That's how I burn out.
Until you burn out, and that's how you are. That's how you were since the day I met you, and that's how you are to this very day. And it's inspiring, man, and it's inspiring. So I've picked a lot of things from the way you do life,
sure,
but not the 4 a.m.
Not the point. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
No, get that away from me. No, dude, I can't do 4. I'm the opposite schedule. I wake up at 7, but I'm up at 1.
Sure.
And I'm sending emails and I'm reading stuff and I'm studying, watching tape, whatever it is. But that's my time. That's just when I function. That's where my brain kicks into gear. But I can't do the other.
Well, we talked about that. Remember, we just talked about before we went live. We were talking about how you have peak hours of your metabolism, your energy, and they always say that your study habits, you have peak hours when you should know when you're retaining that much knowledge, and that's where like you said, you're hitting certain strides at certain times, and then and then you phase out. It's like anything else. You get tired and like, oh, okay, it's time to go to bed, or it's time to eat something or take a break.
And that's individual. Yeah. Like you got to know your own clock. Like I've never been you're like Brenda. Like Brenda is up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She's a ball of energy in the morning. Like her best rolls are at 10 a.m., 6 a.m. Sure. It's just like you in the morning. My best rolls are at night. Like we went to train this last time in Ventura with Frangina and Paragon, and I trained. I think I did the 10 or like a 12, one of those. It was like either 12. I think it was 12, and I did a 12, and the Savages were there, man, and I got my ass beat.
Yeah,
I got my ass beat, man, but I just couldn't get going. I'm just not a morning person, especially like that time, 11, 12. So training got done, and I went around to everybody that kicked my butt, and I was like, "Are you going to be here at 6? Are you going to be here at 6? Are you going to be here at 6?"
Mine back.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
Exactly.
And I went home, and I went back to the room, and I took a nap, and I woke up, and I hit my stride. I woke up, and he was like, "Okay, it's 4 o'clock now," and my brain is active now. Now I can think and start formulating ideas. So showed up to that training at night and went after them, and did much better. So I think like you have guys like you and like Jocko that are very inspiring. Like you wake up at 4, Jocko wakes up at 4:30. You hit this workout, and it's inspiring, but also at the same time you got to know that it doesn't fit. You can have that drive. You just got to know your own clock. You got to know your own time. Yeah. And for me, that 4 o'clock, it's never been for me, man.
Sure.
Like,
And again, it's it's everybody's just different, like you said. But you know what? Floyd Mayweather is the same way as you are. Because he doesn't train until 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
Because when he says, well, when I'm in Vegas fighting, I'm not fighting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Fighting at 10, 10:30,
I'm fighting at 10, 10:30 at night. So my body has to be its best at that time of night when everybody else is going to bed. And that's like he'll be out partying. He'll be out somewhere. It's like, hey, I'm going to go for a run.
Jesus.
And he would just take off and just put his running shoes on and take off for a run because that's his peak time of his training.
Yeah,
at that time.
That makes sense. Also in competition, I've read that Randy Couture would also look at, this is when he was coming up before he was the headliner. Sure. Because headliner, you're the last fight, so you're fighting at 11 o'clock at night. He would find out at what time he was fighting, and he would curtail the peak of his training to that time.
Yeah.
He goes, there's no point, and he was talking about there's no point on having your hardest workout at 10 a.m. or having your hardest workout at 6 p.m. when your fight time is going to be 10:30 at night. You have to. So he modified the workout time to where he's going to be in the card. So that's very smart, man. I think that's something to consider in training too. It's You know, to figure out, like, if you're going to fight at Pants, if you're going to fight at Worlds, figure out at what time you're going to fight. And you're going to have to start doing, obviously, not your jiu-jitsu training because you're tied to the academy schedule.
Sure.
But go to LA Fitness and do your sprints at that time. Start training your body. Okay, at this time of day, you have to be ready to go.
Sure, and it's just schedule is knowing that schedule,
Right.
and getting the most out of that time period. But again, because we're on Brazilian time whenever we compete, they'll say, "Hey, you're going to go on 3," and it's 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock comes around, you're like,
I remember being in that corral, Hector Carpio, and I was sitting in that corral for 3 hours.
right.
And I looked at Christina.
I'm thirsty.
I'm hungry and thirsty, because even though I wasn't cutting weight, I've been sitting here for the last 2.5 hours. And she's like, "What do you want? Give me a Coke and a candy bar." So I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Get the sugar back up.
Yeah, get the sugar back up because we've been sitting in this corral, and it's that caged animal. You get up, and remember we talked about the spikes in your adrenaline. You're watching, you're getting up. Okay, no, not us.
Right.
Oh, not us. Oh, not time yet. And,
Yeah, but I think that's also important. Why it's important to have a team around you, right? Because as a competitor, everybody does this. Everybody's going to do that. As a competitor, you're kind of sizing up the guys in the room,
Sure.
And or you start seeing the guys, get on the mat, and you're like, "Shit, man, that looks like my bracket," So then you start moving, and then you realize it's off by it's a bracket below, or it's a different age, and then so you have that spike in adrenaline, then you have that drop in adrenaline, and like when we're fighting at the Worlds, and you were there, I was watching a bracket, and I started moving, and you're like, "Hey, I got you. Sit down." Like you're like so. Yeah, it was. You called it nervous energy.
Yeah.
Where I was just kind of like moving and trying to keep my body warm. You're like, no. You're already warmed up. Just nervous energy. Don't burn it.
Yeah, you're gonna peak through that adrenaline that you need to get you up for your match. That's why some guys they peak too soon, and we were talking about that. They peak hours, 20 minutes before, and you'll come in sometimes and you're like, you think you're ready and you're flat. You're like, man, nothing was just working. Nothing was clicking, nothing was hitting. And because you burned out that energy along the way. And
you started too soon, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell guys, hey man, just relax. I'll come get you 3 or 4 matches before, and then we'll get ready.
Right.
But
yeah, that's
other than
so
that,
true,
just
man.
chill.
So dude, you've had a very amazing life, a very interesting life, and I find your story of just your career in the fire department, your personal life, and also your career in wrestling, and it's and that's kind of what I want the world to take, little bits of knowledge from you as far as what you've experienced, man. So you ended up, and you're very quiet about it, but you ended up being part of the Sunkist Kids program and being Rulon Gardner's main training partner.
Yeah, for 1 year I was his main training partner.
That's crazy, man. So how did you start? How old were you when you started wrestling?
Oh, I was a freshman in high school.
My
brother had wrestled, and I had started wrestling, and it was one of those things.
And he's your older brother, right?
He's my older brother by 2 years.
2 years.
And I was that guy that, I see Adam Willer, the first, when he was a freshman, he lost every single wrestling match. That was me. And I was like, I lost every single match. And my coach says, and I looked at my coach, he says, "What do you want to do for next year?" I was like, "I want to go to state." Because I was a freshman wrestling varsity. So I'm wrestling guys 3-4 years older than I am.
Right.
So they're just hammering me. It's like a white belt coming in here against blues and purples. They're not black belts per se yet, but they're blues
that
and
level
purples.
of experience, yeah.
So you come in, they're getting thrashed, and I'm like, okay, so I had to jump up to that blue belt level within a year. So how do you do that? How do you jump up to a purple in that year? You just got to put the time in. And so I started wrestling freestyle, riding my bike from my mom's house, was right by Randolph Park, all the way to Pima College, and training and going to different schools and training. And so
What do you mean different school? Like different high schools?
Different high schools. Like I'd go to Choya, I'd go to Sunnyside High School. My grandmother lived right by Sunnyside, so I'd ride my bike over there. My mom would pick me up, and my dad would pick me up and drive me home. And so I just, you got to seek that knowledge. If you want to be good, you got to be in those rooms. And we talk about that in jiu-jitsu. If you want to be good, sometimes you got to go back. You go back to Ventura, and you go back and you hone some skills. You see some better knowledge. You kind of figure out what's working, what's not working, and that's how being in different rooms does it. And I was I'm a huge proponent about training with other people, cross training, and seeing how they're trained and how we do things. And it was great when in the 80s, that's when we started having this open door with the Russians and Japanese, and you'd come in and they'd train with you for a little bit, and you'd see these different styles were.
Was that at the high school level, or was that at the Olympic level?
No, what happens is I was part of a 1 year I wrestled a Japanese kid when I was in high school, and they came to our school. They trained with us for a couple days while they were in Tucson.
Was this a Japanese club or
a Japanese national team?
National team.
National team.
And what high school were you in?
I was at Tucson High.
Tucson High.
Yeah.
So the Japanese national team came and wrestled with you guys.
I was part of like Tucson Unified's team, and so we got to train with those guys, and they came, and it was pretty cool because you got to see them how they work out, and this is where your eyes open up to how they're athletes. They're truly athletes because they're doing gymnastic stuff and tumbling and stuff like that, and we're still doing sit-outs, and we're doing some other drills, and we're not realizing there's a lot of athleticism that goes into wrestling.
Right.
And so that's when they're honing their skills, and that's why they're so explosive and everything else. And so along the way, you kind of read back, go, oh, that's kind of like Don Fry. Well, I'm here to fight. I'm not here to freaking win a gymnastics competition. But you don't realize
what it does, right? Creating the body awareness.
Create the body awareness. Right. Exactly.
Who else came in during that time? Oh, the Russians. You said the Russians came in.
Some of the guys came over, but at the time we were doing this cultural. It's called a cultural exchange. So we would send an Arizona team over there, and we'd travel around, and we'd stay at houses, stuff like that.
Did you go?
It was a long story why I didn't go, but I got in a fight. Me and Ed Carrasco got in a fight.
Yes.
And
it's a good story when Ed Carrasco gets mentioned in this story.
Again, so I was on a team to go to Russia, and I got in a fight, and I was 18, and so at the time I couldn't leave the state. I got arrested and punched. The funny part is I threw a cop. It's not funny, kids, okay? Do not do what I'm doing, okay?
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
But anyways,
did you know who the cop was?
No, I didn't, because I didn't know I was getting. I thought we were at a party by Manzanita Park, and we got jumped.
Yeah.
So all I know is that we're getting jumped.
Right.
And I'm like, holy shit, man! So I'm sitting there tattooing this guy, and all of a sudden, this guy comes over and he grabs me. I hear a car stop. And this guy grabs me and he pulls me off, and I knocked him, just shoulder tossed him, and then he hit the ground. I need him. I didn't know that. I didn't see a windbreaker. I saw a windbreaker, and all of a sudden I got tackled by a couple cops, and I got handcuffed, and they're like, "Yeah, you just kicked my buddy in the face," and I'm like,
"Oh man!"
It was cool because as the cop stood up in front of the judge and said, I never identified himself. He was in the process of him and his friends were getting jumped. I never identified myself, so he kind of had this kind of like fight or flight thing, and I grabbed him, and he just reacted.
Right.
And
dude, that is phenomenal.
That was awesome. Yeah. Matter of fact, the Woolridges from Flowing Wells, the old man was the sergeant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ed Carrasco in the back of the cop car and the sheriff's car, and we're sitting there. He goes, "Hey, you boys wrestled at Tucson High, didn't you?" Old time sergeant, with Pima County. And it was cool. So he was like, all right. So a year later, I got the charges dismissed. But yeah, it was, it took
so
a
that
long
kept
time.
You from going? Jesus,
yeah, it kept me from going. But at the time, it was, and that's when we were peaking as a nation coming, and we had great wrestlers, but we were putting out better and better wrestlers at the time. Mm-hmm. And so it was an awesome time.
Dude, that's so beautiful, man. So then what happened? So then how'd you finish your high school career?
I finished my high school. I took third at state. My junior year, I broke my leg at state. But I broke my left ankle. And then, so that was in the quarterfinals. I won my first match the quarterfinals. And that guy ended up taking second in state. Second in state. He lost to Joey Jobe. So that guy lost in the semis. And I don't know if he placed or not, but Joey Jobe ended up taking second that year to John Volpe. I
was just thinking about Volpe because Nova Holmes. Awesome. He is so far removed from his life as a wrestler, but him and
phenomenal.
Yeah, who do you have?
Talk about machines,
right? Who he fought somebody.
Tom Ortiz.
He fought somebody. Tom Ortiz was unstoppable, if I recall the story correctly, right? Tom Ortiz was unstoppable at
He
the
was
time.
145 pounds.
And
Volpe was 167 pounds.
And Volpe dropped.
No, Tommy went up.
Oh, Tommy went up. Okay.
2 weight classes. And
to fight him.
And beat him, I think 7-5 or 7-2. Or
Ortiz?
Something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Tommy beat him.
Wow, that's a crazy story, man.
Just technique. It's like we talked about it in here. Technique overcomes strength. Just whoever. They always say whoever's better, true to themselves, is going to win.
Right.
And Tommy's at a different level though. His technique was just.
Well, he just fought, and he's 51, 52 years
51.
old, and he just fought a kid that is like in his late 20s or early 30s. And at 50 something years old, I think the fight went like full decision.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but again, it's the mind and body,
right?
If we always talk, other than we're not exactly the athletes we were 20 years ago, but our mind says we are.
Right.
We just don't know it. A tiger doesn't realize he's not a tiger anymore.
Right.
I
think that for example, like for me, like I know, I'm approaching 40 now, and I know in the middle of a scramble with the young kids, like I know, like I'm starting to think like. I'm starting to notice, oh man, I have like 2 more switches, 2 to 3 more switches, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Where this kid still has 6 left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
also, like for example, there's things where like, I'll go for a takedown, but my knee doesn't touch the mat anymore.
Sure.
Especially like my knee surgery and stuff. So I think that your knowledge, you need to learn how to fight your age.
Sure.
You need to learn how to fight your age.
And at your age, you know how to pace yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to go with this guy, but I got a couple more matches. So do you go balls out? Or do you kind of like taper back a little bit? Do your technique, get a good warm up, move around. Okay, then the next one.
Right.
And then the next one.
But those are great competitors, the guys that know how to do that. Yeah. The guys that know, like you watch them, like they have, they're gonna have 4 fights, and the first fight, they're fighting. Their fighter IQ is such level that they know that they can't go balls to the wall in the first fight. So they have the knowledge, man, of like slow down that first fight. They slow it down almost to the point where like, almost to the point where you're like, I'm gonna look away because there's nothing happening, But they'll win. They'll barely win, and it looks like well, he barely won. No. He controlled it to where he did enough to win, saved energy because he has 2-3 more fights, and then those other fights, will be a scrap.
Andre Metzger was he had qualified for the 2012 Olympic trials, and he was in his 50s.
Fuck.
And a guy that was in the 80s. 88, he was supposed to be the guy to beat in 88. So you fast forward 20 years, you got to add 20 years to his life, and now he's in his 50s out there wrestling and competing against younger guys. And how is he doing it?
Randy Couture, 48 years old, 48, 50 years old, and he was still doing it. But he has found Randy Couture's knee never touched the mat. I think the only time I saw him shoot a low takedown was against
James
Toney, that ankle pick.
Boxer.
Yeah, boxer, exactly. And James Toney did a tactical error of coming out with an ankle brace. And Tony's and Randy talked about it. He goes, "Oh, I'm grabbing onto that.
I'm on it.
I'm on it." And he went flat. He went flat and grabbed that ankle pick and took him down.
Because remember what Yoel said, Romero said, and it's like, we see those things, and he got the brace on, he got his elbows wrapped.
Yeah. I'm going for that. I'm going after that.
Right after that.
Right. And that's not. It doesn't put a negative connotation to your character. It's just the competitor in you. It's like, hey, you're injured. I'm going after that.
My job is to fight and win.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So
exactly.
how I win the fight is one thing, but I'm going to fight to win.
Right. That's why, and I think if you've done the same, that's why I never go out with any tape or braces. I don't want to show anything. No. I'll never show anything. So doesn't matter like if your fingers are banged up or whatever it is. I never walk out with any tape in my hands. I don't wear knee braces or anything like that. It's just I go out and just try to play it safe. But I don't want my partner, my opponent, touching
going,
hey, that knee brace is it's kind of thick. What do you got going on over here?
Something I should know?
Yeah. No, we're good. Just go for the other leg.
Yeah.
I'm gonna toe hold in that one. Yeah. Smart, man. So then what happened, dude? So then how'd you end up going to college?
Well, after a couple of programs dropped their school, I ended up going to Pima for a year.
U of A dropped it, right?
U of A dropped the program years before I was going, but NAU had dropped their program, and then Gonzaga had dropped their program, and a couple other schools had dropped their programs along the way. And so I ended up going to Pima for a year, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to stay home for a year, and I met we talked about opportunity. So that was a time where Eli Noble was the wrestling coach at Pima, but he was also the judo coach at Pima. and him and Steve Owens had developed this judo program. So along the way, I started doing judo, and because Eddie Urbano did judo, and we'll talk more about Eddie Urbano in a couple of minutes. But Eddie was doing judo, and he was like, "Hey, it helps you with your foot sweeps, your inside trips, and stuff like that." So I had learned a little bit of judo stuff, and and I would miss Eli's health class, and he said, "Okay, I got to work out with you at 1:00 then." And so that was my penalty for missing health class, was going to work out with Eli Noble.
Oh shit! I would never make it to class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so it was just one of those things. I learned a lot of stuff, and to this day I still use. And it's funny how you just remember all the other stuff that you learn along the way.
Right.
And so it was just something that, some kids take to it. I think judo was one of those things that I took to it, and I kind of like, you can never regret it. But if I would have been more disciplined in my early youth, I would have probably taken up judo an earlier time, and then seen where that would have taken.
See what I would have taken you, man. That would have been phenomenal. So you stayed in Pima.
Stayed at Pima for a year. Got this crazy phone call from this crazy cowboy named Milo Trusty up in North Dakota, and he was starting the brand new wrestling program at this college, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to come up." So
Was that out of the blue where you applied?
out of the blue, and he recruited a guy, PJ Ponce, the coach at Mountain View, last year's state championship. They won it. So he recruited PJ, and then PJ told him about us, me and Ed Carrasco, and then he called me up, and I totally blew him off at the time. I'm like, "Hey, man, I wanted to go to San Diego State. We had just come back from a road trip to San Diego State, my dad, my brother, and I. And I'm like, I'm going to San Diego State. The beach,
Yeah.
If I don't graduate from college or get a scholarship, I just join the Marine Corps, because my contract said that, my Marine Corps contract said if I didn't get a wrestling scholarship, I had to go to the Marine Corps. And so Pima just was going to actually disband their program after that year. And so I was scouring for a place to go.
Right.
And so it was either San Diego State and it wasn't, I think that was the only option. Palomar, there's a couple other schools, Menlo Park or Menlo College were a couple places where I could have went. And I get this crazy phone call, and this guy's talking to me, "Hey, I got your name from so-and-so, and, why don't you come up?" And I'm like, I started looking at the map going, North Dakota, San Diego. It's not a no-brainer, right?
Right, yeah.
So I said, "Hey, man," I said, "I hate to cut you off, but I'm already late to go riding with my girlfriend, and, I'm already late, so I need to hang up the phone." It was back in the day where you still had a telephone
Right, attached to the wall.
attached to the wall.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you got horses?" I said, "No, my girlfriend does." She goes, "Oh, well, I got two of my own. I ride over here in Missouri River Valley. I ride to this and I ride to that." And I'm like, next thing you know, 2 hours later, after talking about horses and hunting and fishing, I got off the phone and said, "I'm going to North Dakota."
Really? That's
Yeah.
smart. I would have been like, "Man, fuck you."
But
Yeah, but he found the hook, right?
he found the hook. He got me. And then the thing was that I'm glad, because it was so far from home where I couldn't come home every weekend. San Diego, I could probably be home every other weekend. And I would, my
More distractions. More distractions.
a ton of more distractions.
Right.
So I went up there, finished my school, wrestled, learned some good stuff,
Right.
and then came home.
And so then because I've heard you talk about your rebirth into wrestling.
My rebirth into wrestling, Eddie Urbano. Let's talk about Eddie Urbano. Eddie Urbano was a 2-time state champion from Sunnyside, a 3-time All-American from.
And your cousin.
And my mom's first cousin, so
Yeah.
he's my second cousin. His grandmother and my brother and my grandmother and his dad were brother and sister.
Okay.
And so I'd always looked up to Eddie.
Well, how many years was he older than you?
He was 7 years older.
7 years older.
And he was being inducted to the College Hall of Fame, the Junior College Hall of Fame, in 1992. And he came over. He was in Bismarck, North Dakota, and I was going to school there. I wasn't wrestling anymore. I was far from wrestling as freaking I am from the moon. And I was doing a bunch of other stuff. Had no plan on wrestling ever again. And he came in, he says, "Hey, I need a workout partner." Okay, so I still had some shoes, and we go work out, and we're working out. And so that all the junior college coaches are there. They have coaches, assistant coaches that are still competing, still kind of animals. Brent Askin talks about that, how you'll have 40 just killers on your team, you have coaches that are killers, and then you have assistant coaches that are trying to make a world or Olympic team. And so that's how some of the junior colleges were. So they came in, and Eddie and I are working out, and all of a sudden, you know, he knows this guy, he knows that guy, and and it's like open mat. Mm-hmm. So you start coming in here, and it's like when a bunch of black belts come in here, and they're like, well, who's that dude? Mm-hmm. Well, who's that guy? Well, I was holding my own. You know, again, it was like one of those things that, oh, you're too stupid to know any better.
Yeah, you're just going.
So you're just going, and so I made a good showing, and it wasn't until Eddie kind of looked at me and goes, what are you doing, man? What are you doing with your life?
Really?
You should be wrestling. You just took down a couple All-Americans. You just took down a former national champion. Why are you just not doing anything?
Had you already not been wrestling for a couple of years?
About a year.
About a year?
About a year, just not doing anything.
Why?
Well, I got hurt. I hurt my knee, and then it was just like the grind. I think what happens is you get
burned out.
Just burned out.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but at the time, it was a grind. It was that 40 matches, and there was no weekends off. There was just constant. So I just got tired of it, and then it was just one of those things that it wasn't fun. And I sat there and I said, you know, this is supposed to be fun, and I'm not having any fun. But the year I didn't wrestle, I had the best grades of my life. You know, could read a book, had energy to do my homework,
right,
and my grades went up. And so I was like, okay, so it was at that point I'm like, okay, I got to start getting a life. Mm-hmm. And so, but Eddie came in, so that's the first part where, you know, I'm going in there, and he's like, he sees me wrestle, and he's like, you're moving good, you got good movement, you should be wrestling more. And then he did a seminar here, and the same thing, hey man, why aren't you wrestling? Why aren't you wrestling? And then finally I said, okay, I want to start wrestling again. And he hooked me up with Melvin Douglas, who was the 1993 world champion, two-time national champ from Oklahoma, multiple world team member, multiple Olympian. So the first year that I got back into wrestling, 1995, I wrestled with Melvin Douglas. I was Melvin Douglas, one of his training partners.
Were you still at?
I was at Sunkist. So I was going down.
Where was this?
In Tempe.
Tempe.
It was actually they are housed the same place as ASU because they have a agreement with them. Mm-hmm. But they had a couple of training facilities, and so what I was doing, I was driving from here. I was teaching, and so I was substitute teaching. So I would get off work at 2:00, haul ass up to Phoenix, train. I would either stay the night or drive back. If I stayed the night, I had the next day off where I would train, right. And then again train in the morning, 10:00, train again at 6, drive home to Tucson, teach again for another day and a half, and drive back up.
How long did that go on?
That went on for about 2.5 years.
So you're back to the grind. Was it fun this time around?
It was fun because I was learning.
Okay.
Because Melvin was a good teacher. Rulon was one of those guys, and so I'll get into where, again, the Greco-Roman. Along the same time, James Johnson, who is the Greco-Roman national coach right now, he was up there, and he had no training partners. So again, I was one of those guys, I was amazed by being, so you can imagine being in the same room as Buchecha and Leo and all these other greats, you know, and Andre Galvan, and everybody's in here working out. And so, it's kind of like these guys, when they're sitting there, I would just get on that bike.
And just watch.
Yeah, and just ride and watch and go like, well, that was cool. That was cool. Because now now I'm watching the best of the best.
Right.
Do their thing, you know, and it's almost like watching those guys flow. Like when I was watching Marcelo Garcia and him and what's his deal, the little guys from Mendez. Watching those guys roll in a practice, mm-hmm. it was seamless and it was flawless. They just kept moving, and this ball of energy was just moving. So that's what you would do. You would see these guys move, and you'd see guys like, oh, you're about my size, you're about my strength, and you look about, you know, my build. I think I can do that. Mm-hmm. And
right.
you see that, and you go like, wow, that was cool. And then you see something that, hey, I'm coaching too. I know something that will help Yeshua out or help Elias out. And I'm going to see something that will help those guys out. And mm-hmm. so you're picking up little things along the way. And I realized that I would never be a great wrestler, but I can get as much knowledge as I can, not enough free knowledge mm-hmm. as I could. And just by sitting in that room and watching them. Right. So James Johnson needed a workout partner. So I would literally work out with Melvin Douglas, and then I would go work out with James Johnson.
Yeah.
And this is like a year prior to Rulon getting there. So, and then for the 96 trials, Rulon based out of Tempe, and so he would train with James because James was the number 2 or number 1 guy on the ladder at that weight. So he had a guy that he could train with, and then I was that guy I was Uki. I was the guy that they would freaking practice gut wrenches on and pick up and slam and everything else.
Right.
And along the way, you learn some good stuff. And,
Yeah. That's so crazy, man. Now, Rulon went on to beat
Alexander Carolyn.
The Russian experiment, man.
Yeah.
That is crazy. That is probably one of the craziest matches in the history, man. Because if you look at a guy that was dominant for so many years, there's a reason they call him the experiments because he was pumped in everything. They were pumping everything into his body to be what he was. I mean, he was doing some crazy stuff back in the day already with kettlebells and the clubs and his workouts and his runs. Just phenomenal. I mean, you had, if you watch an Alexander Carolyn match, you could honestly see fear in his opponent's face when he was working those hands underneath him. There's big guys, man, 240, 260 pounds, driving their weight into the mat to not get picked up, and he would just work it. And you don't see fear. You see apprehension. Okay, I'm losing the grip and stuff like that. Not with him, man. No. There was panic when he would get those hands together because you were not just going up, you were getting spiked.
You ever walk on the edge of a roof?
Yeah. That was exactly
because that's the way it is, Yeah. And, Dave Schultz said that about Eddie Urbano. Again, another plug to Eddie Urbano.
Yeah.
Dave Schultz said that because you just never know what you're going to get. A good wind comes by, you fly off that roof. Just walking on the edge of that roof. So again, you're walking on the edge of the roof, and it's that feeling, that gut feeling, like I'm going to fall.
Right.
And there's nothing. I'm dead, and
right.
This is it. So those guys that are getting lifted, they thought they were able to put their belly to the mat. Nothing was going to happen. And once those hands got locked, it was that, shit, I'm falling off this roof.
And there's nothing I can do.
No.
Yeah, there's nothing. And that was the thing, man. It's like once those hands connected, man, I remember watching some of his matches. And the narrative from the commentators was always that. Yeah. He needs to fight those hands. He needs to fight those hands. You cannot let those hands connect. And he just saw.
Look at Hodger and Buchecha.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, I know I can't let him do this. I know I can't let him do that. And again, but once Hodger got those hands together, Buchecha knew it was over. It was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Once he got those grips and everything else, and so again, once he got those grips, again, it was the beginning of the end.
Walking, yeah. And that's how it is. There's sometimes you're fighting those people that are so good, man, that, like you said, like, you're not in the fight. You're just walking the edge. You're just walking to the edge of the roof, and one good gust of wind, and you're falling over, man. And you're falling over. So for how many years were you part of this group?
I was there for 95 and 96, and then in 96, I kind of like, had different opportunities that I wanted to go back. I wanted to either go into the Army. There were 3 options: Army, Marine Corps, or the Tucson Fire Department.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, I was still trying to wrestle, but I was trying to get a job because I'm at this point now where I'm not making a whole lot of money. I'm still driving a beat the hell, 84 S10 pickup, and again, I'm like, I need to start getting a career.
Right.
So my best friend was on the Tucson Fire Department, Ed Carrasco, and my dad was a firefighter back in the day. And so again, it was like one of those things that I knew that I could make it, but I wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to have a good job, but I wanted to wrestle.
Right.
And so the Marine Corps at the time and the Army were trying to get me to go in as an officer, but every single time that I would think about going in, I would miss my window for the Tucson Fire Department, like their testing was.
Right.
So I was like, well, if I miss this one, then I'll miss this, or if I go in now, I'll miss this test window and stuff like that. So eventually, I just started going to the Tucson Fire Department. But the thing was that the training and the drive to be a good wrestler and a better athlete came in the same as the fire department because I didn't make it the first time. Mm-hmm. I took the test. I took it 5 times. So every single time I did a little better until I finally got on. Mm-hmm. But it was like, no, so I would get up and read the freaking book, and I would study freaking note cards, and I took an EMT, and I went and got my Fire 1 and 2. So the same drive that I put into my wrestling went into being a firefighter.
Right.
And that went to all phases of my career. You know, talk about putting your athletic potential into your training. Nothing came easy because I'm not a smart guy. I'm really not. I fake it well. What I know is I know well. And so, but I would get up in the morning and I'd read. I would get on my elliptical. You see me with the book? The same way. I would get up in the elliptical and I'd read my EMT book. Or I'd read my fire studies book. And then I'd go home, take note cards, and I had to put that kind of energy into my firefighting, into my paramedic, to being a captain. I had to do all that stuff in order for it. And that's where you get that drive. Some guys
that's
just naturally have it. You know
right.
what I mean?
But that's the whole point to me. It's like wrestling should be mandatory. Wrestling should be mandatory in schools. Just because, so like both of my kids wrestled and just like I wrestled, but I didn't really care if they won state or not. What I wanted them is I wanted them to be exposed to that work ethic, you know, and just have that ingrained in their mind.
Training.
And it's a training. And there's really there's no other sport that drives that into the psyche of the people that practice, where nothing's going to come easy. You're going to work hard for everything, and quitting is not an option.
Yeah.
You know, and it just gives you not just the strength of the mind, of the body, but there's something that it does to the soul, man, where you get over things quickly because you won. Congratulations. You have another meet next week, and that guy does not care about this victory over here. Or you lost. Yeah. Or you lost.
Move your fucking feet.
Yeah.
Good job today, brother. Frickin' move your feet.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But so like you lost, and it's like, okay, now you have to get over that heartbreak because you have a whole week's worth of training because you have another meet next week. So you learn to get over things, good, positive, and negative. You learn to not like sit back in your past victories because your past victories are the past. You still have another victory coming up. And then same thing with the heartbreak. Fuck, man, I got my ass beat. Dude, focus. Now we have another meet coming up.
Well, again, it's like, it's not even that, bro, because when we wrestled in college, we could have 5 matches on one Saturday. And it was like, you win, you lose, or you win, you're in the semis. Okay, cool. If you don't, you got the wrestlebacks. And there is no like one and done. You got to wrestle back. So again, you're trying to wrestle back. You're trying to get the best that you can be. So you could have 5 matches,
right?
And you still got to come back. You still got to come back, and then like, so let's talk about this year's NC2As. That kid from Cornell, his last name is Cornell. He's from Kent State, the 197 pounder. He was in the pigtail to get into. He's not even supposed to be at the tournament.
Right.
He had the worst possible fucking record. Him and another guy. They came from, I don't know, the MAC or something. They wrestled to get into the tournament. He upset the number 9, the number 15, the number 1 seed.
Oh my God. To
get into the semis. He loses in the semis, wins the next match, and then beats the same guy for 3rd and 4th that he beat in the semis.
Oh my God.
To get into the semis.
Right.
From Ohio State. So he was 6-1 that weekend.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
He had to wrestle 6 times in that weekend, and he lost. Everybody wants to be a world champion at that point. And this is what we talk about. At every level, there's killers. If you're in the Division I wrestling program, you're a legitimate killer. You are, because you're good at what you do. We always talk about guys that are really good at what they do. Even if you have a Division II, and if you're wrestling in college, you're amongst animals. And that guy, he just had the passion to sit there and say, you got to beat me. You have to beat me. And that's the mentality that we always talk about. He's going to make it ugly. He's going to make it ugly. I don't give a shit if you fucking beat me. I don't give a fuck if I win or lose. It's going to be ugly, and you're going to freaking take it. I'm here for a reason, not for the season.
Right.
And so I'm here to win.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, boom, I'm here. And take it from me. And he took it from a lot of dudes. A lot of guys go, oh, I'm going to freaking walk out. Oh, this guy's from the MAC, or he's from Kent. And he freaking, they overlooked him, and he freaking smoked him.
Yeah.
Because he showed him for a reason. And the guy that's number 1 probably said, oh, shit, he got lucky. I'm going to take it from him again. And got his ass kicked again.
Yeah.
Because, again, momentum and the will to freaking never underestimate the man that has nothing to lose. You got nothing to lose at that point. And I tell everybody, just go out there and fight. You got nothing to lose.
Right.
What's there to lose? You mean you're gonna fight, you're gonna win, or you're gonna learn?
Right. You win or you learn. You win or you learn. Yeah.
But that's what the.
It's only a loss if you don't learn from it.
That's the thing is that we have to. I mean, that's instilled in most of those guys. When you go out there and you figured, you've sucked up those huevos. They call it freaking sucking the egg because you're sucking wind. You're sucking. It's hard to suck shit through an egg, and you're sucking through shit, and you're going like, and it's the suck. You're freaking boom.
Embrace the suck, right?
Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Because it sucks. And yet you're sitting there going, man, and if you don't freaking sit there and try to fight every last fucking minute, it's a waste. Mm-hmm. And you'll see guys that go out there and they get taken down right away and automatically they're out of their game.
They're done, right?
They're done.
Yeah.
And you can see them break. And then that's the problems that is, I'm the same way as you. I never want to see that guy. I never break in front of somebody because I'm sitting there going like, I'm going to be damned if he's going to go back and I don't give a shit if he freaking beat me. If he fucking pinned me, if he fucking submitted me, but he's not going to break me. Mm-hmm. And fuck you, I'm going to get up and kick you. I'm going to get up and freaking push you.
Right.
And again, it was one of those things that I'm not going to break in front of somebody. And that's my mentality. I may not be the best guy on the planet, but I'm not going to break.
Right.
And I always got a smile on my face. Gabe always talks about it. When I'm in the middle of my grind, I got the smile on my fucking face.
Right.
Because I'm like, I'm enjoying this because guess what? I didn't break.
Because you embrace, you embrace the suck.
I'm going to break you.
That's something.
I'm going to break you.
But so going back to that thing that we were talking about, man. So I think that you're a product of those things that surround you, right?
Sure.
And very early on, because I used to compete in like kickboxing and stuff, and you have a bunch of people that are around you and praise you. Like you win, oh dude, you're amazing. Congratulations, good job and stuff like that. You get nothing from those. I want the guy around me that's going to acknowledge my accomplishment and immediately correct what I'm doing wrong. Because there's always room for improvement. And the second we sit back and celebrate too much, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. It's acknowledge and improve right away. So probably had one of my best performances in 2017 pants, and I wasn't looking at my phone until I made it to till I was done with and going into the finals, and I finally look at my phone, and all my students, man, just pages and pages of, oh coach, just this and that, and then I see Mike Romero, and I'm like, that's the one I want to see, and it was exactly that. Hey, good job, move your fucking feet. And I knew exactly what you were talking about because the guy, the semis before going to the finals, that guy kept throwing me. Like I would get inside of him and then just my feet wouldn't move for a second and the guy was bigger than me and he would muscle the throw,
Boom. Yeah.
And, but that was exactly, like I knew exactly what we were talking about, so, but those are the people that we need in our lives, man. We need the people that acknowledge and immediately critique.
Yeah, because like you said, you got students and everybody else that loves you that will never really tell you the truth. But you want somebody that says, yeah, you suck. You know what? Your freaking takedowns suck. And I admit it. My takedowns are decent. My stand-up is freaking, or my top game is decent. My ground game sucks. And I need somebody to go like, hey, man, you need to move your hips. You need better grips.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you can't let me do this. And again, it's not one of those things like, oh, that was awesome. Right. That was awesome, man. Hey, like we sat there and I've gotten my ass kicked by you plenty of fucking times. And we sat there at the edge of it and going like, okay, see right here, this is where you need to do.
Right.
You can't let me have this, and that's where you improve.
Right.
We're not improving off the hey, good job. We need some. And my old man used to call it tough love. You need that tough love. And Augie's that way. Augie's fucking totally my brother Augie, Dr. Augustine Romero, Pueblo High School.
Yeah.
He's totally that way. Hey man. Nope, you're hanging your arm. Or, nope, you're not tucking your arm on the elbow on that throw. Or you're doing this wrong or doing that wrong. And he's that mad scientist that I always call and say, hey, man, look at this film or come watch me do this. And because he'll sit there and break it down like, nope.
Right.
Nope.
And we were talking about studying tape, right? So besides being competitors, we're coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were talking about like our obsession with studying tape. And I was telling you, like I think I told you that story where nowadays it's on YouTube or whatever technique, whatever you're watching technique, that I'll watch a specific thing and 5 seconds of actions turns out to 45 minutes of me just going back and going back. And I'll watch the right hand. Sure. And I'll watch the right hand. Then I'll watch the left hand. And then I'm watching that for like those 45 minutes until I understand, until I absorb the technique. I'll become obsessed with what happened in those 5 seconds of action because that right there made the whole difference in the match. But you were telling me a story where like Augie would have a tape, and
it was the old school. It was the VHS.
The VHS. But you'd see him. So you'd see Augie pop the tape in. You'd sit down with him, and like an hour later, you're like, "All right, I'm done." Leave, do whatever, come back, and now he's still there, man. Like, he hasn't moved. He's sitting there still, wearing out the tape.
And I think
studying it.
that's what made him such a good wrestling coach. And if you look at Augie's, he took a program at Tucson High that hadn't finished in the top 10 since 1987. Within 6, 7, 8 years, he's having top 10 finishes. But why? He expects, he demands, and he's giving everything possible to those students. Like Paul Anderstep, the black belt from Undisputed.
Right.
One of his guys. What's his name? Josh Barnett. Not Josh Barnett. Brian Barnett. Another guy from there. He's a Ranger. Freaking just a tough son of a bitch. John Richmond. Oppenshaw. Andy Behrens. You know, all these guys were studs of his. And it was because he watched something and goes, this is going to work for you. I don't want you to do what they're doing. You're going to do this. And you're going to do this. And you're going to do this. And he would just take those and he would have a couple of drills where he could sugarcoat, but he just watched stuff like, this is going to work for Anderstown. And he's that guy that sat there and goes, no, put your hands here. And he has a guy, I mean, look at a guy that you look at him, and you're going to look at this guy going, wow, I'm going to run over this guy. He's kind of a toad-looking dude. And next thing you know,
you're on the bottom.
He's mastered his grips.
Right.
Remember we always talk about grips. Mastered his stand-up, and he's throwing guys left and right. Yeah. Because he's mastered his body and everything else. And he's a student of the game. He'll sit there and go like, dude, watch this again. Watch this again.
Right.
And I watched you against Travis. He let go of that grip. He let go of that hand, and he got that sleeve back. And once he got the sleeve back, it was over. Right. But he was good till you gave him that. He got that sleeve. You got that sleeve back, and I go,
here he goes.
Here he goes.
Yeah. No, that's phenomenal, man. But also what makes competitors so we'll start getting into like some of the funny stories because Augie and you and Eddie, all of you guys came over to our old academy.
Yeah.
And I had done well in competition. I think I was a blue belt when you guys came over.
I think you were a purple.
A purple.
Yeah.
And I had done.
Eddie told me he just got purple, man. So watch out.
Yeah. No.
Because you had a white belt on. Because you.
Oh, did I?
I
forgot my belt. Okay.
Yeah.
I would remember that one time. But what I do remember is this. I've told this story many, many times. And before you guys, before having you guys in the room, my students had heard of you guys because of the lessons they learned from you guys. Because jiu-jitsu is one of those sports that you can compete in and never be in a fight.
Sure.
And I think you're able to not to insult the sport of jiu-jitsu, but you could be lazy in jiu-jitsu and just develop like a certain technique that works really well for you. And like a leg lasso is a prime, it's a prime example where you could just sit in like leg lasso
you can hang it all day long.
And just slow it down to the point and just win on advantages, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it wasn't until you guys came over that I'm a purple belt and you come over and next thing you know is I'm in a fight. And my technique, it's not responding to what you guys are doing. And what you guys did is you turned it into a fight.
Yes.
You didn't sit there in front just like flowing with the grips or countering with technique. Because a lot of times he was like, I have the leg lasso. Well, I don't care. I'm going to smash right in. And he was just, and I had to go home and just kind of rewire my brain. And that's when I became a student of what you guys were doing and just absorbed more of that wrestling drive. And it completely changed my game. And it changed me to the point where it changed the way I fight. It changed the way I teach. It changed the way I look at jiu-jitsu. It changed the way I look at conditioning and even at drills.
Sure.
Where you have to recreate that fight.
And again, it was instilled in me from early. My dad was one of those guys that, hey, es un hombre. Freaking, you're a man. You stand there and you stand up and he knocks you down, you get right back up.
Right.
But you stand your ground. You're a man, you stand your ground. And this is where, again, my balls and my pride has got me into many jams because I'm not going to step back, not 1 inch. And
because before anything, we're men.
We're men.
Yes.
And so again, even though like you look at Rulon Gardner and Booker Bedford and Kevin Jackson and James Johnson, and it was all these great guys, and what made them appeal to me or made me appeal to them was they would take me down and I'd get right back up and get right back in their face. Mm-hmm. Boom, attack. Do it again.
Right.
Okay, do it again. And it was like one of those things that Melvin actually helped me out a lot against Mark Kerr because he'd be like, hey, man, you need to use your elbows more. Remember I was telling you thumb in the elbows, thumbs in the shoulders, thumb in the neck, and you're doing this constantly? That was Melvin Douglas. But he would told me, he goes, you're letting me in too much. And again, because if he didn't make me better,
he wouldn't get better.
He wouldn't get better.
Right.
And everybody else would just freaking run through me. And he's like, no, you're gonna be able to hold these guys out. Ended up working. But that was that drive. Like the one day that you submitted me, and I jumped right on top of you, like, no,
yeah.
No, dude, this is we're
It's a fight.
It's a fight
It's a
right now.
fight,
Let's
yeah.
go. And you're like, oh no, okay. But that's the way it was.
Right.
They would take me down. Next thing you know, I'm in their face. Okay, do it again.
Yeah.
And not letting them rest.
Right.
Rest on the laurels. Yeah, you took me down, bro. Good job, but do it again.
Right.
Can you do it again? Can you do it again? Because again, like we always talked about, it's that, hey, move your fucking feet.
Right.
Hey, you just won, good job, move your fucking feet. So again, it's that drive that I'm trying to tell you, hey, you need to improve on this, and I'm telling them, hey, you can't rest on what you just accomplished.
Right. And I think that's, and then again, talking about what I've learned from you guys and what I've learned from that mindset is, and a lot of
guys hated that, man.
Right.
Like, oh, shit, here comes Mike.
Here comes Mike.
Even the rest of the Pima, like Josiah and those guys, they're like, fuck.
I loved it. But like but talking about like even how we design drills now is you and Ben Askren is a huge critic of how jiu-jitsu is taught in the academies. Is that a lot of times you see them practice a sweep, and as soon as a guy falls, the guy stays on the side. You know, like I'll do a sweep and it's like, no, dude, like just because my hip hits the ground doesn't mean that the takedown that you got it. It doesn't mean that you swept me. You still have to make me accept that you've taken me down. And that was one of the things, some things like rolling with you guys, like when you guys first started, is I would get a sweep, I would take you guys over, and then your hip would hit the ground, and thumb is going to the neck, and you bring your hips back. And I was like, what? Why are you not accepting the sweep? You know? Not anymore. So that now we drill those things where, you show them a sweep, and part of that is, let me show you how to get up and make the guy accept the sweep, because the really good guys will not accept. Do not accept.
I mean, how many times you try to sweep Ferengina and he switches in the air, and you're like, well, he just didn't go over.
Yeah.
Because that's not in his brain. His brain
Right.
is to win this fight.
Right. And
he's drilled.
Right. And to the extreme to where, like, one time we were playing position, and he was top and bottom. If you sweep, you're done, right?
Yeah.
And this dude, his brain, Frangina's is wired to the point where he will not accept. Like, he will not accept. and we were fighting, and I swept him. But he's not on his back. He's kind of like on the side, and he has my leg, but he's on bottom, and I'm on my knees, and I'm trying to fight. And we're fighting, and you had to like count for like the 3 seconds to get the points. And in the middle of the fight, we're fighting, and I was like, hey man, I'm pretty sure this is a fucking sweep. Like we were at that point where like both of us are pissed. We're fighting. And from the bottom, while fighting, he looks up and he goes, advantage. That's it, dude. Like, he's like, no.
Yeah.
Like in his mind, he's like, you haven't swept me. He's like, I'm still moving, And that's the real competitor's mindset.
So you just said it right there, real competitor's mindset. Because again, he just didn't flop over. He just didn't say, okay, I'm going to succumb to this. Because again, we always talk about training the way we fight. Train the way we fight.
Right.
Because in a fight, in a match, if he concedes, he's used to sitting there like we always talked about. Hey, make sure that you do this, because then in match time you're going to want to concede. He's not conceding. Even in a match, he's not conceding.
Right.
And because he's training not to concede.
Yeah.
You better take it from him. And that's one of those things that you better outright take that from him.
Right.
Because he's not going to give it to you.
But that's the dude that, so I've heard those phrases that said, if you don't roll, you don't know, right? And that's something that unless you're a competitor and you've been in those rooms, like I'm gonna tell these 2 stories, man, and some people might just like shake their head and just be like, I don't get it. But as a competitor, you're gonna get it. Number one, I was rolling with your brother, and your brother, you look at him and you're like, I'm gonna roll through this dude. You're rolling with him and you're like, holy fuck,
Realize you just wrestled a bear.
Give me that stick. I need, give me something.
This
I'm
is the
gonna
bear
like,
they talk about? Yeah.
yeah. And I'm fighting him, and I'm spending a lot of energy because, like a good wrestler, he was always really good at getting back to his knees, getting his hips away. He didn't care about playing guard.
No,
he was gonna get up to his knees. So I was trying to keep those legs down, and I do a knee cut, and in the middle of the knee cut, he goes whack, balls.
Yeah.
And I'm pushing, and I'm like, okay, because you do, and then you let go and you adjust, No. Augie, what's up? You got my balls. And he goes, I know. I go, are you going to let go? And he goes, are you going to pass? And I go, not this way. He goes, good. And once I backed up, he let go, The other story, dude, is I was rolling with Ed Carrasco. Nicest human being ever, but the competitor mindset.
Yeah.
I'm half guard, and I'm trying to scoop underneath him because Eddie has won his championships on phenomenal wrestling, and then he sits there, man. His base is super active, is very smart. So I always use them as a tool to try to get underneath. If I can get underneath you and Eddie and Augie, I can get underneath anybody. So I'm half guard, and I go to scoop underneath, and he's on top, and he goes, bah!
Yeah.
It was clearly an accident. He headbutted me trying to, and I'm like excusing him in his mind why he headbutted me.
Yeah.
And same thing, he's doing his grips.
He would never do that on purpose.
And I have my grips, and I shoot my half guard again. I'm trying to scoop underneath. Bah! Eddie, you're headbutting me. And he looks at me, he goes, you're trying to sweep me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? I was like, you're right. And we kept going, and I probably took like another 4 headbutts.
You gotta work through it.
You gotta work through it. Yeah. But that's the mindset.
Well, that's where we were watching Billy Zanuck. Billy Zanuck is one of the U.S. coaches right now, national champion maybe a 2-time state or national champion from Iowa, world team member, world champion, I think. And we were watching him at Sunkiss one day, and he's getting ready for his matches, and he's sprawling on the basketball court. Oh. And I'm not talking about little like, I'm gonna float. He's dropping his hips and elbows are smashing down. He's banging, bam, bam, bam. And you can hear the gym floor, bam, 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 bam. And I'm like,
if he can do that on the hardwood floor.
No, that just showed that what we were doing was wrong.
Right.
Because here's a guy that's gonna slam himself on the freaking basketball court. And we're on this soft mat. I mean, it's not soft, don't get me wrong, but it's cushioned. It's cushioned. And we're like, fuck, we're not doing it right.
Yeah.
We're not doing it right. So we watched Billy Zanuck, and we're like, we're not doing this right.
Right.
And again, it's like one of those things that, the first time, wrestling with Elias one time, I freaking butt dragged him. And he's like, hey! And I'm like, the first time I was in college, this guy checked my oil. And he got me, and he ripped half my cheek off. And he's dragging me, and I'm like, and I wanted to be like Kurt Osander, Hey, you got rubber on because you just fucked me with your hand,
right?
Man,
yeah.
Because at least give me a cigarette now, bro. But it was just like that because it was like they're grabbing, they're ripping, and you're like, wow, we just went to a different level of competing. And so if you didn't,
I've been rolling with you with like fingers in the eye socket, and part of me wants to be like, hey, you want to move your hand, but part of me goes, I need to fight through this. I need to, well, it's a test. It's a test.
We've been there when I get hit in the face or I get kicked in the face, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, keep going.
Let's go. Yeah,
Let's go.
I've never stopped a match after getting hit. The only time is I took a tooth to the forehead, and I was bleeding everywhere. Other than that, I get hit, I get elbowed, let's go.
Well, that's wrestling. That's fighting.
Yeah.
And that's what, and at the time, that's why those wrestlers were winning UFC matches because they'll take that first punch, kick, elbow, knee to the face. How many times have we been knee to the face wrestling?
Right.
It's a sprawl. The guy jumps up and boom, you get knocked in the face. You're gonna get your bell wrong. You gotta work through it. You gotta see through it, and that's fucking life. And that was remember Dan Gable. Once you've wrestled, everything else is easy.
Right. Exactly.
So you can apply that to life because life don't give a shit. Wrestling doesn't care. You saw last weekend, you saw national champions. We see it all the time. We see black belts, and you would think, oh, he's a black belt. We see you go to the world championships for jiu-jitsu, the Pan Ams. There's 10 weight classes, and there's 2,000 black belts. That means that 990 or 1,990 of those fuckers lost.
Right. There's only one dude walking away with it.
Yeah, there's only one guy walking with it. There's 10 guys walking with the title. Yeah. Same thing in wrestling. Wrestling doesn't care. Jiu-jitsu doesn't care. And because at the same time, life doesn't fucking care.
Right.
And that's what life's all about, because you're going to take that hit. I mean, we've taken hits in our careers and our life, and we're like, fuck, man, what do we do? And again, you think about it, and you go like, I got to work through this, or I got to find a way to get through this.
And that's why I'm a big proponent of, again, recognizing progress and recognizing success, man. There's a guy in jiu-jitsu that is, like, to me, one of the biggest shit. I don't even want to name him, but to me, he's a poison in jiu-jitsu, man, because he's one of the biggest guys that talks a lot of shit, like if you take silver in a 2-man bracket, right? Well, you lost, you won silver. You shouldn't take a picture with it and stuff like that. I get what he's saying, but it's not that. It's the journey. It's not, when people talk about climbing Mount Everest, they don't talk about what the peak looked like. They talk about the 5 stages to get up to the peak. That's what the journey is. And not everybody is a world-class competitor that, to them, getting ready for a competition. So some people are like, I'm training for pants. That's cool. For some others, we're like, fuck, man, I'm putting everything behind this.
Sure.
You know, it's just who you are as a person, and it means a lot. And to me, that the fact that this person overcame their doubt, their fears, their struggles, signed up, paid the fee, drove to California, you know, whatever they had to do. And it's not their fault that there's only 2 people in that bracket. Yeah. And they won or they lost. It doesn't matter. They showed up, and we need to celebrate that instead of bringing each other down.
Well, we were talking about that guy from Sweden, the 5-time Swedish national champion.
The brown belt that I fought?
Brown belt. And
dude, he was in the magazine. He was in my bracket. I'm looking at the magazine.
You're like, oh, shit.
I was like, chiseled jaw, handsome, buff as fuck, his fucking chest protruding out of his gi.
Yeah,
and because this is when they give you a magazine, right? So
yeah, the Gracie mag in the bag.
Yeah, in the bag, and I'm looking at him. I was like, fuck, he's in my bracket, you know. And I had to overcome that, and I was like, you know, because it's your voice. There's 2 voices. The voice that goes, you're fighting a fucking European champion. And this magazine, they like wrote an article about him winning Europeans and MMA and stuff.
That, yeah.
And I was like, Mike, he won Europeans. And you, in true Mike fashion, you looked at me, and in that soft, poetic voice of yours, he goes, well, this is not the fucking Europeans, is it? I was like, no, it's not. Let's fucking go, you know? And dude, but that's the year also that brings us to the other story, is the infamous weight cut, which you've tried to change and say you were wearing underwear.
I had some freaking board shorts on.
You did not, my friend.
Okay.
But here's the story. So that year, and again, being young and unexperienced, I had problems weight cutting, and I showed up 8 pounds over.
8 pounds over.
8 pounds over. And I was like, all right, dude, let's cut this. So.
And what did I tell you? We're going to get this fucking weight off.
We're going to get this weight off.
You got to give me, what did I say? You got to give me 1 hour. 1 hour of hard work, and we're going to get this fucking off.
And you told me, I promise you, you're going to take, because I was worried. It's 8 pounds. It's a lot. And 8 or 9 pounds. And you told me, I'm going to make sure you get the weight off. Which at the time, it's like the beginning of the movie, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is it ominous? I'll see you.
Yeah.
Which means nothing at the beginning of the movie. At the end of the movie, you're like, oh, that's what he meant. So we started weight cut. It's underwear, plastics, T-shirt, plastics, sweatpants, a hoodie, tape on the wrist, tape on the feet.
Yeah, the hoodie that I let you borrow and fucking.
I never got it back.
Yeah, you gave it back like 5 years later.
It was very comfortable. I liked it.
It was.
Yeah. So. And then we started weight cut, and you know we did the
run first.
We did the run, then the elliptical, then the bike, and then you said we're gonna finish 10 minutes in the sauna, 10-15 minutes in the sauna. I was like, okay. So the sauna room had this window, which there was a clock that I could see, right? So I sit down, and I'm still in that garb, and I get in the sauna first. You get in there, I'll be right in there. And fucking in walks Mike Romero naked. I was like, oh, unnecessary, but okay. So now I'm naked, or now you're naked, and I'm starting to be like fucking delirious, man. That's you're dehydrated.
Remember, you did
heart-
20 minutes of running, or you did 10 minutes of run, 20 on elliptical, 20 on the bike, and so now we're going to finish that last 10 minutes in the sauna. But again, it's that progression. We did hard, a little bit better, easy bike ride, and then we're just going to sit there and let it sweat.
Just let it sweat. But you're starting to be dehydrated, so your heart is never slowing down. It's just boom, 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 boom. And I'm sitting down in the sauna, and I'm doing this. And when you're dehydrated, you start doing some silly shit. You start becoming silly in your mind. And I remember doing this test that made the perfect sense in the world to me, which was I would sit there and kind of like do this and feel
and jug how much water you have. That feels like 5. You hear that slush when you're running. You're like, hold on, man, because you're dripping.
Right. I would do this. Like I would pull it out and just let this puddle of water, but I could feel it here. And I remember being in the sauna and just like being fucking delirious and just having those 10 minutes in my mind. But I would do this and then my mind said, that's 8 pounds. I was like, hey, Mike, I think I'm done. Like, I'm going to get out. And you're like, where are you going? It's like, I'm going to get out. I did the test. It's 8 pounds. And you took this deep breath and you went, well, man, I promise you it's going to help you cut the weight. So you have 2 options. You either shut the fuck up and sit down, or you and me are going to fight, and I'm going to keep you in here. It's your choice. And you just sat back and let me make my choice. Which at this time...
I didn't even look at you. I just told you like this. I didn't even
son of a bitch, yeah. Which at this time, I started running the numbers in my head. I was like...
It's kind of like what's that movie where like...
The Hangover, where you started like seeing the numbers?
No, it's just like you see the fight sequence, like, no, that didn't work. It wasn't Last Samurai. It was another movie where he's like...
Sherlock Holmes, where he sees the fight before it happens.
Yeah, you're like, man, this might not go well.
And then, so I'm starting to do the numbers. I was like, oh, we're going to fucking cock and balls. I'm going to sit down. so I sat down, dude, and I was like, good judgment. And then you looked up, like, you didn't say anything. I didn't say shit. I sat down, and then same thing. You went, good call. And in my mind, I was like, fuck this guy. But we walked out. And I'd made the weight.
Yeah, I told you. I dried you off, freaking toweled you down, and like you're a pound under because I said, watch, you can have a Gatorade and a half a sandwich or a sandwich. Go to bed, you'll wake up and you'll be underweight. It was a
pound under, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what your body's gonna follow. And again, when people we talk about the journey, and for some people that never wrestled, never competed, never really. That's the journey. When they do it in their 30s and their 40s, and you see those viejos do out there in their 50s. And that's the journey they're going through. They have never competed. I'm going to go out there and compete. I'm going to go out there and do this. I'm going to go out there and do this. And again, like I grew up competing. At one stage or another, I was competing. And now it's like, but again, that's their journey. And for some people, like you have never really cut weight before. And so you're like, oh shit, this is a lot. And like, no, it's not. It just showed that you were undisciplined. I remember we talked about discipline and you said yourself, I'll never get to that point again where I have to endure that.
Right.
Now it's like I'm under a couple days.
I never walked around more than 10 pounds.
Yeah, and you're struggling and everything else. But you talk about the extremes. I mean, I remember being in North Dakota and cutting weight and laying in the fucking snow to let our bodies cool off because we have no more sweat in us, we have no more water in us, but the snow and it's building that little burning that thing out right in the middle of the snow. You're letting your body cool off that way.
Jesus Christ, man.
Ed Crosco, I shit you not, one day, and Ed can attest to this, one day we're cutting weight, and I go, hey, man, I'm going to check my weight, I'll be back. Okay, man, I got a couple more. I go check my weight, take a shower, come back, and I look in the window, and I don't see Ed, and I'm like, oh, fuck. So I must have missed him.
He passed out.
So I fucking go back to the fucking wrestling room. He's not there. I'm like, did anybody see Ed? No. I'll walk back in. Open the door, and the fucker's on the ground, passed out.
Oh, my God, man. That's how fucking people die.
Yes. And I fucking pull him out, get him out of there, I rip that fucking plastic suit off him, get him out there, and he's like, oh, I'm cool, bro, And I'm like, no, bro, you're not.
You're done, yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. And I had to tell the coach, I go, Coach, man, Ed passed out in the sauna. He goes, man, that's awesome. We're laughing about it now, but
that was the animal mindset.
That was the animal mindset. Oh, you know what he can go through. You know what you can go through.
Right.
We know where you can go through. And you look at that, And like we always talked about, I'm not going to compare it to like going through selection of any core like special forces or ranger school or anything like that. But it's that mindset, and like you're gonna make this or you're gonna die.
Right.
And it's like, and it was
Or are you willing to die to make this?
And that's the thing was that Ed was willing to die to make that weight class. I mean, he was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna die." He passed out. I mean, you talk about those guys that are running, and all of a sudden they just drop and they're passed out because they're just exerted and they're starved and they're dehydrated and their metabolism's just fucked. That was Ed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll tell you another story. He had a broken wrist, and he week after week, man, we're taping the shit out of it. He's like, "Man, my wrist isn't healing, man. My wrist isn't healing." He goes to the doctor and he got two fractures in his wrist.
Jesus. And he's still wrestling.
And he's still wrestling, and the coach goes, "Oh, we know how much pain you can put through." And it wasn't one of those things like, "Oh shit, let's like nowadays like,
okay,
let's take you, let's put
yeah.
you to cast, let's get you here and there." It was like, awesome, we know how much pain you can endure. Mm-hmm. Because that was the mindset, that was that cowboy mentality that Milo Trusty had that instilled in us, like, do or die. Mm-hmm. You put your name right here, you're gonna make it. You told the man you're gonna make 177 pounds, you're gonna make it. You told the man you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this.
Right.
And I'm gonna hold you to this. You tell somebody, "Hey, I'm gonna do this," you hold yourself accountable.
Right.
And that's what I learned through college is holding yourself accountable. And again, just being willing to endure. And I always talk about there was a SEAL named Billy Wags, and he always talked about he was a Notre Dame football player. He went to law school, and when 9/11 hit, he became a SEAL. He's big like freaking Elias, and he was a lineman, and he was talking about they're like, "Really, dude, you're gonna be a SEAL?" He goes, "Yeah," but he learned at an early age from Lou Holtz that you have to suffer and endure in order to succeed. You have to suffer and endure. So if you want the goal of being a Division I athlete, you gotta suffer and endure. If you want to be he went through law school. You have to suffer and endure. It's a different kind of suffering and enduring, but you need to suffer and endure. Mm-hmm. And same thing as he put into being a SEAL. You have to suffer and endure. We tell our guys all the time, "You're hot." I say I feel for those guys that are in here for the first time. They got a gi on. They're in here. They're doing calisthenics. They're doing simple movements, and they're dying because it's unfamiliar for them. It's not something they're used to, but they're here.
Right. They're taking that step.
But they're here. Yeah. And that's the thing is they're taking that step. It's the break. We talked about walking into that new room, walking into that new dojo, walking in and overcoming that fear. So when you overcome that fear, that's the journey that you're going through now. Life is a journey, and jiu-jitsu is a journey in itself.
Yeah. It takes two things for people, in my mind. It takes two things for people to be successful. If they've never done any kind of competition in their life, and they want to start doing jiu-jitsu, whatever stage in your life you might be, whether in your 20s, in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, it takes two things. All under the premises of you are a result of those that surround you. Show up. Through contact with those people that are doing what you want to do, you will get better. They will nurture you. And I think they're very proud of having a program where nobody's going to tap the white belt, because we've experienced that where, you you tap the white belt, the new guy, like 7 times. Dude, that's not, you don't do that. You know, they don't know anything. Show them, teach them, nurture them. But you show up, and the guys that are here will, number one, watch how they practice, observe, learn. And number two is start seeing how those people live their lives, because just because you show up at jiu-jitsu doesn't mean that now you can go home and eat the burger, you got to watch the guy that is one of the most dominant guys on the mat, and then you watch him how he's successful off the mat. I want that. Yeah. I want that. What are you doing? Teach me. And I think one time we were working out at the fire station. I was like, dude, show me what you eat, because he was that. Is like, I wanted to learn how to be that disciplined in all aspects of my life.
The thing is, it was and again, it's discipline, because like you said, it's like, and I think I've lost that discipline somewhere, because like competing wise, I can't just compete to compete. Like some guys just come out there and they're they just like, "Oh, I don't care. I'm just going to go out. I'm going to walk out and do it." For me, in my mind, there has to be a process. There has to be a freaking, okay, you're going to train at 5 a.m. You're going to do some other stuff at noon. You're going to do some other stuff at 6, and you're going to eat this, and you're going to be diligent. And I think for me, it's like, because I can't give that to my body, myself anymore. That's why it's so hard for me to compete these days.
Right.
And it's just like, and you look at it like, I
Well,
always,
you've been doing it for so long too. You've been doing it for so long, and for people that don't know,
I don't want to half-ass it. And that's
right?
the thing is,
but
that
no,
because,
you're pushing 50.
Yeah.
You know, but 50, a rough 50, a 50 that's done a lot both career-wise and
Hard miles.
and hard miles.
yeah, Hector Carpenter calls it hard miles.
Yeah.
You were bad to your body.
Right.
He goes, I'm just going to take up yoga, but you were bad to your body. I mean, because I can't.
Right.
I got up yesterday. I'm like, oh.
We weren't bad on our body. We used our body.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I do it so because when I had just gone through my 2 shoulder surgeries, and this when I was having problems with my knees. So I go to the this before my knee surgery, and I go to the doctor, and I come out of the doctor, and I hadn't thought about how this was going to affect my kids, my surgeries. In my mind, it didn't even affect them because it didn't affect me either. I was just like, hey, get this shit fixed so I can get back to like doing what I love. You know? But we're in the parking lot, and one of my kids is like choked up, man, and I was like, what's going on? He was like, I don't want you having surgeries again. Like, it scares me. And this is what I told him. I said, you know, because we talked about, I think it was Joshua, and we talked about using your body. And this is what I told him. I said, Mijo, did you see all those old people in that waiting room? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay. You see how broken and fucked up and beat up they are? And he goes, yeah. Well, one day I'm going to be in that waiting room, fucked up and broken and beat up. The only difference between me and those old guys is that I'll have stories about my life and why I'm like this. Where those guys, age happened to them.
Yeah.
Age happened to them. You just got old. Now everything broke down. My shit was broken down because I used it. And I have phenomenal stories, man. I have phenomenal stories of, you know, of competition, of travel, of mat time. You know, sharing it with you, sharing it with the other students. Those are stories that I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't trade a fully healthy body for those stories. Yeah. It's what makes life.
It makes life for, you know, because we only get one pass at this.
Right.
And you'll talk to some people and be like, I should have did what you did.
Right.
Or I should have went with you here. Or I should have been here with you. And you look at it going like, okay, so what are you doing now?
You can still do it. Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing now?
Am I too old to start doing this?
No. Joe Solorio's hitting 60.
Joe Solorio's a savage.
He's 10 years older than I am. We're 10 years apart. And I always tell Joe, hey Joe, so tell me, bro, tell me what to expect. And he goes like this long laundry list of shit that happens when you're 60.
When he starts pulling the skin of his mouth, it's like, check this shit out. And you're like, Joe, stop. It's like, this just started happening.
I got my arm jiggles like an old woman. Yeah. So he's like, yeah. So I always look at Joe and like, but Joe started jiu-jitsu when he was 47. Mm-hmm. He was 47. He started jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And again, it's like, wow, you know, he started this when I was 37. And we're 10 years. We're 10 years apart.
Right.
You know, how does he start this? You know, and I looked at myself going like, yeah, he was my age when he started this.
Right. And you guys are a big example because we're 10 years apart. Yeah. And I grew up without a good example of what growing old looks like. So I didn't want to see 48. Yeah. 48 was, my dad was already fucking done. Yeah. You know, everybody that I grew up around is like fat and obese and I used to, and you're still doing, and all those guys are still doing. So I'm still fighting that in my mind, but because it's so many years of looking at growing old under that, where I'm like fucking 49, you know, still fucking banging, you know. Hang on, let me warm up, but still, you know, but still banging, man. But I wanna, before we're done, man, I wanna hit up that.
I'm getting old.
Crap, yeah. I want to hit up that story, man, of Ive Urbano, man. You talked about Ive Urbano saving your life.
He did. You know, again, he's the one that pulled me back into wrestling. Mm-hmm. You know, I think because he was like that guy that he saw, and Eddie was that guy that he could see the good in everybody. If you had a goal, it was his goal, and he would be like, oh hey, we got to do this, okay, and the same thing with Ed Carrasco. Ed Carrasco was making a comeback at one time, and Eddie went out of his way to help us in getting, like, Eddie workout partners with Marco Sanchez and Townsend Saunders. Both guys are Olympians for Puerto Rico and the U.S., and Townsend was a world silver medalist or Olympic silver medalist. And again, Eddie did everything he possibly could because our dream was his dream.
Right.
And he just saw that and goes, you know, you got a lot of potential. And again, I was on it. I mean, if he didn't pull me back in, you know, you just never know what course you're going to go through because you just don't know. But he pulled me on the right side of that road. Instead of going left, I went right, and this is where my life kind of just took off.
Right.
And he's the one that kind of like, hey, come on, we got to do this, and hey, we talk about, and Eddie was one of those guys that we talked about. He loved eating and drinking,
Right.
and because he had that mentality, hey, you work hard, you play hard, and he'd always call it train like the Russians, because whenever the Russians were in town, they drank vodka, and plum champagne, and a bunch of stuff, and so they would drink and they would party. And they would just constantly freaking, and then they get up and train.
Remember that time in Vegas?
Remember time in Vegas?
It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
We partied all night. We got home at 3, and guess what?
So what was it? 6?
6 o'clock in the morning.
6 o'clock. You're kicking my bed.
Kicking your bed, going, "Hey, dude, let's get up. Let's go train.
Yeah.
We want to party hard."
And I was like,
but that's the mentality that we have.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, hey, we're gonna have a good time doing this, but guess what? We're gonna put our work in also. And at that point, discipline equals freedom, like Jocko says.
Right.
If you're disciplined enough to stay on task with your training, with your diet and everything else, and you want to it gives you the freedom to party and do those things. And you had a goal. You were getting ready for a fight. Augie wanted to fight. And guess what? Your goal became my goal. Hey, come on, dude, let's go.
Right.
Let's go train.
We're gonna do this together.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where Eddie kind of like, and I got a lot of that, and Eddie just was really, I mean, he could have actually just said, oh, you know what, I'm not gonna bother him anymore. But he's like,
he wouldn't let off.
He wouldn't let off. Just said,
what's the story with the guy that he fought and Eddie was out of shape?
oh, Sean Bourmet. Sean Bourmet is the assistant coach for Michigan State now, and he was the guy that was he had just wrestled in the NCAA finals the year before, and like you talked about Eddie having that chub fit. What'd you call it?
Chubby buff.
Chubby buff. You know, he had the little belly on him, but he had the
Fucking guns, man.
The fine arm, the shoulders,
yeah,
chest, but he had a gun on him. You know, legs and everything else, and so he's out there, and especially the old singlets that we used to have, the freestyle singlets. You know, it just so that gut would always show, and so Eddie goes, "Come on, let's get ready let's do the 95 nationals." All right, let's do it. So we're getting there, and I'm wrestling, and he's getting ready also. And he's gonna, at the time, he wants to make 149. And I said, "You're not gonna make 49. You're gonna make 63. And then if you make 49, then we'll get you back on track, and we'll get down to 49." But Eddie was one of those guys who was a competitor, and so he's like, "Okay." So along the way, he goes in there, he wrestles his first match, and he destroys that guy. He wrestles Mike Schick, and Mike Schick's a All-American from Ohio State. Text him. I mean, you're talking about a guy that Eddie was probably 10 years older than this guy, and Eddie's freaking storming this guy. And so he wrestles Sean Bourmet. Sean Bourmet is like, he's ranked. You know, he's one of the guys coming in. And Eddie fucking schools him. Fucking texts him. And Eddie got that cowboy ride, and we call it cowboy ride, but it's a leg lace where you put the guy's ankle here, and you kind of do a couple rows, and freaking boom, 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 boom. Eddie freaking rolled him up. And he gets up, and he's pissed off, and he goes, and Eddie pats him on the head and goes, "Hey, man."
Don't be mad.
He was talking shit. He said, like, "Fuck you, man, I'm going to get you," or something.
What, the guy was talking shit?
Yeah, he goes, "Fuck you, man, I'm going to get you next time," or something. And Eddie goes, "Hey, man, take it easy. Wait till you thought this was bad. Wait till I get in shape." You know, because he still had a gun
wait till I get in shape.
Wait till I get in shape. Then
it'll
really
be bad.
fuck you up. Yeah.
Holy shit.
But Eddie was one of those guys. So the next year, he doesn't make weight at all. He goes 180, and he competes. He loses in the blood round to get into the All-American to make it to the trials.
Jesus, man.
And he's at 180. So, again, you're talking about a guy that was wrestling at 149 pounds.
And now he's fighting 40 pounds over.
Now he's wrestling 180 pounds.
And he wasn't that tall either.
No. And he's wrestling fucking legitimate killers. Chris Barnes was a 2-time Oklahoma State champion.
Right.
He was a 2-time or 3-time Oklahoma State, and he was a junior national champion. He was a 2-time Oklahoma State national champion at Oklahoma State. This guy was a freaking killer, and Eddie takes him into overtime.
Wow.
Little fat Eddie Urbano was in there fucking rolling with the guy, freaking arm dragging, freaking hip picing, trying throws. Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
So, yeah, he's, and I loved Eddie because Eddie was before his time, though, because we talked about, when he told Martin, "You couldn't armbar me." That's the same guy I saw, because the judo room was right below. We trained at First Bethlehem Church, and the wrestling room was upstairs. Well, it was in a wrestling rink, or not a wrestling rink, but a skating rink.
Uh-huh.
So they had a little festivity going on. So they moved us downstairs to the judo room. That's where Don Fry and Dan Severn were training.
Right.
So in that room, I see Eddie Urbano leg locking both those guys.
Oh.
And this is pre-jiu-jitsu, like,
Right.
it hasn't even hit Arizona yet because I don't think Richard had come over
Right.
or the Machado brothers had come over yet. This is
Right.
jiu-jitsu.
Where was he seeing this?
He learned leg locks from Steve Owen over
wow.
at frickin'
Judo.
at judo at Rincon. He learned leg locks and arm bars and chokes from those guys. So you're looking at a guy that adapted shit that he learned 10 years before.
But even some silly shit, man, from like other martial arts. Like I remember you telling the story where he had seen somebody do Wing Chun, sticky hands, and he brought it to wrestling.
Yeah, he's like, come on, man, fucking come at me. So I'm going at him. He's like,
yeah,
and he's like, yeah. So he learned his arm drags off of freaking sticky hands.
Yeah, that is crazy, man. That is crazy.
But again, he's like kind of like Augie, where I want jiu-jitsu to work for my body and how I fight.
Right.
I'm not here to throw an arm bar off the bottom. I'm here to beat your fucking ass.
Right.
And when I get on top of you, I'm gonna choke you and I'm gonna break something. But that's how Eddie was.
Right.
Eddie was something like, teach me something to make my wrestling better or my fighting better.
Right.
And that's how he was. And again, he was, like I always say, he was before his time. Like if they would have had weight classes like now, because it wasn't 2000 where Matt Hughes and Carlos Newton were fighting for that title where they had broken it down.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 10 years before.
Right.
And it was like, and that's when Don Fry was still fighting the three fights a night.
3 fights a night, yeah.
Whoever the ultimate hombre is, that's freaking, again, that's who wins that match is whoever wins all 3 fights that night.
Right.
Nowadays, it's like super fights and titles and everything else. Eddie was before his time.
Wow. That's crazy, man. Eddie was wild, dude. So Eddie was a wild person. And like you said, he lived hard and he partied hard. Where do you think he lost control of that? Was it just he couldn't move away from being a competitor and being an instructor?
My old man used to call it the real reality, and I think at some point we lose. You always talk about those guys that still live like it's 20 years ago and they're living in that day 20 years past.
Right, the guys that get stuck in like the high school senior.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
and so I think Eddie was in that. I think and Eddie had a lot of trust in a lot of people. And so along the way, he was coaching at Chandler, but he was coaching at junior high. And he's like, hey, you got to bite your time. It was that good old boys committee. Like, hey, teach our young kids how to do this, and then we'll bring you up. But Eddie got impatient. And I think what happened is he thought because he was a national champion, that he was going to get showered all these accolades and all these job titles. But it never really took off for him. Mm-hmm. And instead of trying to make his own, he kind of reserved the fact, okay, I'll be a junior high teacher. And I think the burnout of driving every single day to go be a junior high teacher just got to him. And again, because you kind of look at it like, well, this is my life. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a wife that fucking hates me. I got 4 kids that love me, but my life is miserable. And I think that's where he never really found that real at peace of what he was doing.
He could. I think he tried a couple of times to get like an MMA going, an MMA program going. And I think that's something so important, man. That also speaks to not having a seat at the table, but creating your own table.
And again, I think it's that mental health that we've always talked about. Like, again, there has to be something else other than what's driving you. And I think, what took him over the edge pretty much was just that fact that, again, it was...
What else?
And he looked at, and Joe Slory always talks about somebody gives you this can, and you're like, oh shit, it's a can. You throw it away. Well, you dust it off. Oh man, I'm gonna make this out of it. I'm gonna make a lampshade out of it.
Right.
Because you saw something in that can that did something else. Well, that's how some of the programs that Eddie got offered, he was like, oh, that's too much work.
Right.
Or I got to sacrifice this. And Joe Slory always talked about, sometimes you just got to push that. You take that top layer of dirt off of that, and guess what? Right. You found treasure underneath it.
Right.
And that's where Joe has always been that grinder. Like, Pima College, he made it work. Bimetto, he's made it work. Right. He's put a lot of effort into that because a lot of people like, wow, this is hard. You know how hard it is to come up every day and open the doors and be here 3 times a day. And that's hard. Yeah. But that's life.
That's life.
That's life. But it's what you make out. You enjoy being here and watching those kids roll and watching your students roll and learn something. Because it's amazing when you see them do a sweep that you just taught them, or a choke that you just taught them, or an escape you just taught them.
Your fulfillment has to go from you have to find fulfillment somewhere else in life. You can't just be like, what titles did I win? Because eventually that needs to stop, and then you have an academy. And like you said, like my fulfillment, now comes from, I'm still a competitor, but my fulfillment comes from that. Like you have a guy that all of a sudden tells you how he sees life different now because of jiu-jitsu. We were just having a conversation with a guy here the other day, just like, he's going through some tough times, but he said, what I'm going through right now, he goes, pre-jiu-jitsu, I would have been freaking out.
Yeah.
And now I'm just kind of like, okay.
Because what do we always tell you guys? See our way out.
Right.
You're in something, how can you see your way out? Because until it's over, it's not over.
It's not over.
So you have escapes. You have different movements you can do. You got different things you can do. And we talked about that equation. Life is that equation. What's not making it work? How do we solve this equation? Mm-hmm. We break it down simply and go, okay, I need to solve this part first, and then this part. That's jiu-jitsu, is working your way through things.
One grip at a time.
And it's freaking, and jiu-jitsu is that life. And life can overwhelm you sometimes, and you're on top of this big monkey's on top of you trying to choke you, and you're like, I just got to put my hands here, open, sweep, oh, I'm on top now. Right. But they don't see it because that turmoil is going on. It's remaining calm and just finding that peace inside this room. Sometimes it helps you.
Yeah.
Because I always look at it going like, okay, so I remember my grandfather coming back from World War II, and he owned Jenkins Mattress over there on 22nd Street, and my dad said that he was in Okinawa. He was at a couple of major battles in the Pacific, and you watch the Pacific and you watch other shows, and these guys are just they're ill-equipped, they're malnutritioned, they're just getting overrun. And my grandfather, when he came back from the war, if somebody for some reason he couldn't pay the lights that day or to turn them on, he would just sit there. It was no big deal for him. My dad said that everything else was easy because he had just been through this war. And no matter what they did, it was like there was nothing else. There was nothing you could throw at him that was going to make him suffer.
Right.
He'd already seen suffering. He'd already endured.
True suffering. True suffering.
And again, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. They just turned my lights off. Cool. I'll go sell some matches and go turn back on.
Right.
And we don't have any water.
But that's the survival, not just survival, because survival it's different from still being in the fight.
Sure.
And wrestling and just being, I think, service in the military with the right minds, and it gives you that where you're just unbreakable, man.
Well, we're in the fight till they start shoving dirt in our face. That's the truth of it. We're in the fight till then. Life's a fight, and life's life until we're fucking buried and they're throwing dirt in our face. We're done. At that point, we're done. The fight's over. But again, till then, it's you're always in it.
Yeah.
You're never out of it. And that's the truth of it. We're never out of this fight, and that's what people don't realize. People give up. People sit there, and I kind of wonder sometimes what made people break. Mm-hmm. Because
you're talking about like watching have somebody having like an emotional breakdown.
Not just an emotional breakdown, just a life breakdown in general. Like you've lost everything. I mean, how do you just lose everything and just become that person, that lost soul?
Right.
We've seen them. What we do. We've seen those people like. And they'll talk about
the broken souls, the broken men, the broken women.
And again, I'm like, how did we get to this point?
Right.
What made you give up at this point? What was the breaking point that you had?
Right.
And I like to hear. I mean, when I was a medic, I talked to people in the back of the truck. So tell me what happened, man. Oh man, freaking this and that. And I'm like, did you ever think about this? Well, it's not as easy as that. I'm like, okay.
For sure it is.
Yeah. Sometimes it is though. Sometimes it is. And sometimes it's again like you and I think it's in our character. Like, if for some reason I lost my job, I would have another one within a week. Mm-hmm. I would not go. I mean, we would be something. Right. If for some reason we landed here, I would still a T-shirt and a shirt, and I would put it on. I'd go interview. I'd steal a bunch of newspapers and freaking sell them and make enough money to pay for this. And again,
you'd find a way.
I would find a way. I would find a way to survive.
Right.
And make it happen. And again, it might not be legal at some point because I'm taking shit, but again, it's like one of those things that again, it's like, even if I had to go to Goodwill and buy a freaking 25-cent shirt and say, hey, you know what, I'm applying for a job, I need a shirt and a tie.
Right.
You know, we would find a way to make it back. And, you know, I went through a bankruptcy. I went through a freaking, my wife has MS, my mom had cancer. And at the same time, I'm going through a bankruptcy. And I was like, okay. And Christina's like, what are we going to do? I was like, oh, if worst comes to worst, we'll go rent a house or we'll go live in an apartment and, you know, we'll just store all our stuff in storage and
right.
we'll make it.
Right. Yeah. Failure is not an option. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You can take a knee, but you got to get back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, so phenomenal, dude. Thank you, man. It's inspirational.
Sure, I know we can go all day, man. We could just go back and forth.
We got to do it again, man.
Oh,
But
we'll do it again.
Inspirational like always, man. And it's one of the reasons that like I said, like my students, my friends heard about you before even meeting you, man. Because, you know, like when you're the instructor, people look up to you. And I'm always, I don't want like to be the center of attention. I like to have the center of attention so I could put it on other people like you. So when people are like, oh, coach, this, no, let me tell you about this monsters over here.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about Mike Romero. Let me tell you about Raggi. Let me tell you about Ed, man. So, and you're one of those guys, man, that it's, you guys have a quality about you where you don't need to say anything to energize a person around you. You just have that, you know. You just have that about you, man. So,
and I love people, and again, it's a pleasure, and again, I'm just happy to be fucking, like I told you when I punched you and fucking said, I'm just happy to be here.
yeah, beautiful,
again,
man. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
Catch us at Daimyo and at the new Daimyo on Twin Peaks.
And the
Erie on South
Erie, yeah.
I-19 and Irvington. So all 3 locations, come check us out.
Check him out, dude. Commercial and everything. Awesome, man. Thank you.